Hey everyone, it's me, Papa Flippy. I've been hearing a growing number of rumors that there will be a Saints Row 5 announcement at E3. A majority of these rumors come from the fact that Deep Silver will be at E3 with 3 booths. Homefront: The Revolution and Dead Island 2 are 2 major upcoming releases, so I think we can all expect those titles to be there. Mighty No. 9 is also an upcoming title, and really there's quite a lot from Deep Silver to expect. So just them being there does not mean that we will hear anything about Saints Row. According to Natalie Lander, as far as she knows, there is no announcement planned, though she is just a voice actress and she might not even be signed on for any future Saints Row projects. And after all, Gat Out of Hell was just released 4 months ago. Can we really expect an announcement this early? Well, Volition outsourced most of the work for Gat Out of Hell to High Voltage, an independent group of developers. So during the time Gat Out of Hell was being developed, Volition was cleared to do their own thing. So the past year they could have been working in the beginning stages of planning Saints Row 5 or perhaps a new IP. So expecting some kind of announcement or trailer at E3 wouldn't exactly be unlikely. However, I have a feeling we're a long ways away from any announcement whatsoever. Remember when Saints Row 4 was announced? It was out of the blue, just bam, Saints Row 4 announced independently in March with a full-blown trailer. And then they released a multitude of teasers and trailers and attended various conventions and expos, which from a marketing perspective was really well played as it kept everyone hyped and interested up until the game's release. So assuming Volition markets Saints Row 5 like they did with Saints Row 4, we might not hear any public announcement whatsoever until 2016, and that's the earliest I see it being released. But fingers crossed for some E3 news, as the only thing we can do as of now is speculate. But trying to speculate about a game series as chaotic as Saints Row is meaningless, really. A chunk of the community was really hyped about the time-traveling ending of Saints Row 4, and some still hold on to this ending as the true ending that will lead us into Saints Row 5. But the story of Gat Out of Hell has been somewhat confirmed as canon, maybe. The only thing I could find was this enraging cop-out response. So I'm assuming it is canon, as I have no reason to believe otherwise, and there was no mention of time travel at all in Gat Out of Hell. Again, speaking from experience, trying to coherently speculate about the future of Saints Row is meaningless and a waste of all our valuable time. But I'm gonna do it anyway. So for the remainder of this video, I'm going to be given a vague idea of what my ideal Saints Row 5 would be like. I'm sure most of you know what I'm already going to say, but let's start from the beginning in case you forgot. Though the story of Saints Row 1 was a bit cheesy, but with a nudge and a wink of self-awareness, Saints Row 2 stepped in and decided to go full-on B-action, and that's where the series really hit its stride. Still cheesy, but with enough edge to cut the cheese. Saints Row 3 decided, well, if we're going to be the B-movie of games, might as well go full-on self-aware parody to save face. And ever since then, the story has slowly been dwindling away until we literally have nothing. Oh no, aliens have attacked, demons have attacked. Shallow stories for otherwise decent games. The series is now in a bit of a stalemate. What exactly are they trying to accomplish now? What left is there to say? Hopefully nothing. End it. Put it out of its misery. But that would be a problem because the Saints Row series is still a profitable one, and even though I'm one of the harshest critics of the series, it was at one point my favorite game series, so I don't think I'd like to see the franchise end just yet. Instead, I would prefer a reboot, where the main cast of Saints Row is still in place. You're still the boss of the 3rd Street Saints, Shandy, Pierce, and Gat are still lieutenants, and it more or less picks up where Saints Row 2 left off. However, Kinsey, Josh Burke, Kilbane, Zinyak, Jezebel, and the entire cast of Saints Row 3 through Gat Out of Hell do not exist in this game's universe. In addition to them, Julius, Dex, Troy, Lynn, and the cast of Saints Row 1 through 2 do not exist either, which might be a hard pill for some of you to swallow, but given how congested the entire plotline of Saints Row is, sacrifices will have to be made in order for this reboot to be off to a good start for old and new fans alike. Now, I'm not a writer, and if I did write Saints Row, I'm sure it'd end up being the game version of Samurai Cop. So instead, I'm going to say, let's go with the original idea of Saints Row 3 and have the Saints infiltrated by an undercover cop. Whether this version should follow the original idea and have you as the undercover cop and play out a role like Troy did in Saints Row 1, or if it should solely be nothing more than a plot device to get the game rolling, I don't really know and I don't really care, but either way, the subjects involved in a story such as this seem more fitting to how a traditional Saints Row game would play out. Action, drama, and suspense. No more pandering to the meme culture or sacrificing important plot points for cheap jokes. Instead, let's leave all that to the chaotic setting that surrounds the story. It's really hard for me to decide what my favorite open world map is, but it's definitely a tie between San Andreas and Stillwater. The 2 common themes these maps have is diversity. As you progress through the world of San Andreas, you go through many different settings: city, country, and desert. This illusion of diversity and how the map changes so drastically makes the entire map seem bigger than it actually is. Stillwater in Saints Row 2 does this exceptionally well, and arguably to a greater degree than San Andreas. With every district of Stillwater, there's a new theme of attraction. You have plazas here, the red light district is here, the slums and dilapidation are here. We have Chinatown, a farm, a university, a trailer park, the suburbs, the big city, a Roman-themed museum, and various islands and caves. The amount of variety you have in just this one city is remarkable. Contrasting it with Stillport, things are coated in a beat-down, gritty, washed-out look. This is how the entire map looks. If I were to highlight where most of my activity in Stillport takes place, it would be in these green areas. The red areas indicate the dead spots of the city, areas that are too similar to each other or areas with nothing more than repeated buildings with nothing of interest near them. Even though Stillwater lacks the graphical enhancements of Stillport, Stillport is still an environmental dud. I can't stress it enough, map diversity for Saints Row 5 is something I really desire. But in addition to this, I'd like the map to be a bit more spread out. Something bigger, maybe even split up the map to where traveling to certain areas would require a lengthy boat ride or flight. I love that adventurous feeling you get when traveling to the secret islands. If we had that same feeling when traveling to another city, that would be pretty astonishing, though I could see this being a hassle for some of the lesser patient players out there, and I imagine this would lose its charm rather quickly, so maybe something not too distant but still separated enough so it seems like you're entering a different city altogether. Perhaps borrowing the map stylistics of Just Cause 2. But that would be a bit of an injustice to Saints Row, as what really made the map so great in Saints Row 2 is that we had all these different cultures and lifestyles shrunken down into neighboring districts, so maybe something spread out isn't exactly what I'm trying to say, but just go bigger with the premise of Stillwater. And while we're on the subject of the environment, environmental weapons is something I really adore. Saints Row 2 had a marvelous feature where you could pick up a number of different objects and use them as weapons. Anything from a mailbox to a TV set, a lawnmower, or even a flamingo. I'd like to see this feature expanded on beyond the blunt object melee role. Let's say for example this 40 ounce. You drink it and then you smash it on the ground. Well, why not obtain a broken bottle weapon when you do this? It can basically be a reskinned knife. Or you see this hedge cutter, why not have this be a weapon as well? Or how about an umbrella? You can steal one from somebody and it would act as a sword. Or spray paint. It can be reskinned pepper spray with a painting effect. And speaking of spray paint, let's talk about tagging. Tagging is a pastime of gang activity, so I'd like to see it return. In Saints Row 1, it was pretty basic. You tag over a different gang's tag, simple. In Saints Row 2, it was more or less the same, however you could actually choose your tag this time. For Saints Row 5, I'd like to be able to go even further and create my own tag. Make it a feature similar to Tony Hawk's Underground 2. You could choose from different shapes, layers, and text options, and spray your tag on anything. Instead of tags being like a collectible in a fixed location, make it like the Hitman activity. You'll be given a list of certain landmarks and buildings to tag, and in doing so it may start a gang warfare. If you're catching my drift with all this, I'm seeking out more customization, more gang-related activities, and a more appropriate arsenal for the common street thug. But that isn't to say I want this game to be completely engulfed in the realistic crime culture. It's perfectly fine to want some of the more tongue-in-cheek activities. Yes, the premise of the game is that you're the hardened leader of a gang of criminals, but we will need something to lighten the mood after you bury another human being alive. So let's have some fun. After all, being a convivial maniac or a puckish rogue is the underlying theme for the whole series. The boss of Saints Row 2 has a bit of a split personality. Throughout the campaign, he's a always-on-edge lunatic and at times utterly terrifying. This is who you're supposed to be. This is the main star of the story, this unmitigated psychopath. However, the open world boss is a bit out of character than how they're portrayed in the story, where we have a number of unique, over-the-top, and downright silly activities to play. In the context of the story, this is all out of place. Saints Row 3 and 4 try to make up for this by giving the boss more of a joyous personality that is front and center in both the activities and the campaign, and the result is that we get a campaign padded with activities and a more bland and predictable open world boss. You could argue that the boss being out of character in the open world of Saints Row 2 completely breaks the immersion of the story it's trying to tell, but this is precisely the problem every open world game goes through. For Saints Row 5, I would prefer a game to try and actually tell us a sincere story and then give us the option to engage in nonsensical activities on our own. Saints Row 3 and 4 locks us into this experience, and there really isn't much else to the adventure beyond what they show you. An example of this is in Saints Row 2. Your character will randomly sing along to the radio, a minor Easter egg that's pretty humorous when you experience it. In Saints Row 3 and 4, they make it a point to show you this because it's scripted in the campaign. Still humorous and one of the more memorable moments of Saints Row 3, but because it's scripted, it feels more like they're trying too hard to recapture the essence of what made those silly moments so notable in Saints Row 2. Saints Row 5 should let the player experience the fun for themselves, naturally, and not solely be locked into a linear stage-by-stage series of scripted hit-and-miss jokes. If we're that determined to give the player a new gameplay experience, then why don't we take advantage of the arcade-style games of Saints Row 2? Zombie Uprising was pretty fun, but it was simple. You stayed in a single room and fought an endless growing wave of zombies. Why not bring this mode back and make it more elaborate? Maybe give Zombie Uprising 2 its own storyline. We had a zombie mission in Saints Row 3 and a side-scroller in Saints Row 4, but let's not have something that's so intrusive to the story. These come off as forced, and I think they'd work better as their own thing and not shoehorned into a complicated mixture of whatever B-movie tropes we can think of. Again, keep the immersion-breaking moments outside of the campaign. Put them in the arcade or something. People defend the stylistic changes of Saints Row, stating that it's a necessary change in order to prevent the series from becoming stale, somewhat akin to the criticism of the Call of Duty franchise. Some say to me, Flippy, do you really want a Saints Row 2.5? No, but I at least want a Saints Row game. I'm not buying this game as some sort of grab bag of entertainment. Ooh, what game am I going to get this time? I'm buying it specifically to be a gun-toting madman in a street gang. That's what they sold me on. Superpowers were fun, but if we're going to have jump-the-shark gameplay, why not make it more fitting? I don't have a solid solution to this, so let me just go with my wild idea of skateboarding. Skateboarding is already perceived as an activity for the thug culture, so it would fit right in that a group of street thugs would also happen to be skateboarders. I was actually a bit disappointed that we couldn't ride skateboards in Saints Row 2 despite them being in the game. Look at the atmosphere of Stillwater. If you're a skateboarder, you'll know that these are some of the best spots to skate ever. Man, an open world skating game and a crime game? That at least sounds a bit more original and fitting than going full on Crackdown. I want to stress that I don't want a feature such as this to interfere with the story or the gameplay too much. I don't think the skate culture would be a proper fit for the Saints Row style completely, but I wouldn't mind having it be a part of the world of Saints Row 5. Maybe just have it be nothing more than a side feature like it was in Kingdom Hearts 2. I personally don't think we need to reinvent the gameplay of Saints Row, but hey, there's my solution if we do. Now let's turn our attention towards co-op. Co-op is fun, but for the love of Christ, let us play with more than one other player. I have never had more fun in co-op than I had in multiplayer. Test this out for yourself. Get 3 or more of your friends, go to Stillwater Science in Saints Row 2 multiplayer, baseball bats only, who can stay alive on the blimp the longest. One game session of that was more fun than I have ever had in the recent years of Saints Row co-op. New Saints Row has grown stale beyond belief for me. I can't play longer than 20 minutes without getting bored, and playing with just one other friend outside the campaign does not help. Yet from 2006 to 2010, I played Saints Row 1, which is arguably the stalest title in the series, every day for at least an hour up until they shut down the gang servers, the only real functioning part it had. 4 years of playing Saints Row 1 every day. That might seem crazy to you, but that's the charm multiplayer has. Every day is a new experience and it keeps the game fresh. In these clips I'm showing you, imagine me, Saints Godzilla, and everyone else laughing our asses off because we were. That's how engaging the Saints Row experience can be when you play with more than one other person in a competitive setting.
Isn't it?
Maybe. I just died. No, I didn't. I'm oh fucking god! Where did you come from? So please bring it back. Please. Okay, I hope I gave you guys at least a vague idea of how my ideal Saints Row 5 would be. This is really nothing new that I haven't said before. I made over an hour worth of content explaining this. At this point, I can't say any more without it being redundant rhetoric, and I'm quite sick of talking about it. I don't have faith in Volition, to be honest with you. Their Red Faction series, along with their Saints Row series, is proof that they can't keep their design goals clear. Saints Row 5 can be anything as long as it has the 3rd Street Saints, and that's the sad truth of it. We can all keep hoping if we send them enough petitions, or make enough forum threads, or make lengthy wishlist videos that they will acknowledge the loyalty and the effort spent. But it's been proven that the most we will ever achieve with all this is a nod and a wink, and maybe a side activity. But really though, can you blame them? From a business point of view, a designer's point of view, a writer's point of view, they've got it made. They've got some talented people at Volition, and all they need to do is give us some quick fun gameplay to entertain us for a month, paint it purple, sprinkle it with some pop culture references, and you got a game that will sell and be praised by critics and hipsters alike. But for us dying breed of old Saints Row fans, maybe it's best we move on, because the row ain't safe no more. Thanks for watching. I want to thank you guys so much for all the support you've given me, all the nice comments and such. It really means a lot. I apologize for the weird pacing of this video. My software keeps crashing on me, so I had to release this thing before my computer completely died. But hopefully I can give you guys some better content soon. Honorable mentions of things I wanted to include in this video but couldn't for various reasons include day and night cycle, crib customization, layered clothing, more interiors, more interesting pet AI, floaty stunt physics, and so on. Basically, just watch my old wishlist videos. And follow me on Twitter and Twitch, and I may do a whole Saints Row series playthrough on Twitch in June, so tune into that if you want to. And leave a comment below, what would your ideal Saints Row 5 be like? Again, thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you later.